Good morning, grade 5. This is Miss LaPietra. We will be doing volume today, lesson 4. Here we go. Our target for today will be I can find the total volume of solid figures composed of two non-overlapping rectangular prisms. Your materials, you should have a paper and pencil ready to go because we're going to be doing some of these together. And our vocabulary is the word volume, and volume is a three-dimensional space occupied by an object, like for example a cube. Before we get started, I just want to remind you about fluency. Don't forget to practice your math facts before starting every day. And here's a few ideas that you can do to have fun with them. Do some kind of exercise while reciting your math facts. Have someone ask you your math facts using flashcards. And if you don't have anybody to do it with and you want to do it by yourself, you could still use a deck of cards and flip two cards over, multiply them, and say the answer. All right, let's get started. So far, hooked today. This should be some review from the first few lessons that we started with volume. Let's name the length, width, and height of each figure. So for this one, we have 3 times 4 times 2. And if you write that down, because you're doing this with me, you should have 12 times 2, which will be 24 centimeters cubed with a 3 above it. Okay, so what will your answer be for the second figure? Okay, and make sure when you're writing these, you're making a multiplication sentence. So for the second one here, 4 times 4 times 10. So here's our length, here's our width, here's our height. So you're going to say 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 10 is 160 centimeters cubed. It just reviews a little bit about what we did yesterday or in the prior lessons. So let's move on. Let's look at this picture. Partner A and partner B have two different figures. Partner A, his answer was 12 cubic units. So if I counted all of them, there would be 12 blocks. Partner B had 8 cubic units. That means that I would have counted 8 blocks. You see 4 in the front here, and there's 4 in the back here. You don't see the 2 on the bottom because this here is covering them up. Same thing for over here. Okay. Now let's see what they do with the same two figures. They put them together. Let's see if we get the same answer if we put the two figures together. Here's some possible combinations of student A and student B. Which combination would you go with? Will they all have the same answer? Think about that for a minute. Look at your possible combinations. Will they all have the same answer if they're using the same blocks? Well, if you said they do, then you're right, because student A had 12, student B had 8. All they're doing is putting them together. It can look like this. It can look like this, going up vertically, up and down. Look at this one. They put it side to side like that. Or they put this block right on top of the other block. And here's a couple other examples. So what they're doing is they're pretty much showing you that as long as you started with student A and student B and put them together, you didn't add any cubes or take away any cubes, you're working with the same amount of cubes, then that means that your answer would still be the same. Okay, here's one example. Let's look at two figures and find out the total cubic inches. Remember, volume equals length times width times height, and then we're going to label it. Very important each time. So let's look at the bottom cube first. Okay, I have this bottom piece. This is the bottom box I'm talking about, the bottom cube. I see a length of 6, a width of 5, and a height of 4. I'm doing this one for you today because I want you to get an idea of how you are going to do yours. 6 times 5 times 4. And when we multiply that together, 30 times 4 would be 120 cubic inches. Now let's look at the top box. The top box, the second cube, is a little smaller than the bottom cube. And they show you that right here by looking at this 3 inches going from here to here. So that's 3 times 5, not the 4, that's a little deceiving because it's sitting right there, but still, this width is the same as this bottom width. Didn't change. So we have 3 times 4 times 2, and that would give me 3 times 5 times 2 would give me 15 times 2, 30 cubic inches. And then if you remember, our target states that we're going to take those two volumes that we have of each box and we're going to add them together for the total. So here's my total. 120 plus 30 gave me 150 cubic inches. Here's example 2. Let's do the same thing again. I will be guiding you this time, but I will give you some time to figure it out before I give you the answer. Here we go. Find the volume of box 1. Here we have box 1, the bottom. 6 times 2 times 2 going up. Here they haven't marked the height on this side of that. I'm going to let you try this one. We're going to do this together though. So find the volume of the bottom box, and we just said it was 6 times 2 times 2. And then find the volume of the top box. This one's a little trickier because if you look at the box here, they're not giving you the length right here. They're giving you the length of the rest of the other box. So if I have a total length down here and I have some of the length up there, if I subtract the 2, 6 minus 4, I will get 2 for the face of the front of this box for the length. So my top box, I would say, would be 2 times 2 times 2. Not 4, because 4 is the whole entire side. And if I said 4 minus 2, I would get 2 for up here. Okay? All right. So the top cube was 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, what did you get for your bottom cube? 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 24 cubic meters. The top box, 2 times 2 times 2 would give you 8 cubic meters. So let's add the two volumes together. 24 plus 8 equals 32 cubic meters. Okay, so now let's do this one together. Again, I will be guiding you and giving you some time in between for you to solve. So find the total volume of the figures and record your solution strategy. So I have a little hint here. When solving a multiplication statement and solve, make sure you're writing your volume, excuse me, equals length times width times height. So Step one, I'm going to start you off. I'm going to guide you to the bottom cube. What will be the bottom cube? What times what times what? Your length is, I'm just going to point to it, and you can follow along and write it down. You should be writing these. Length times your width times your height. Okay, write that one down. I'll give you a little bit to come up with an answer for step one, or for the first cube. Okay, step two would be to find the volume of the top cube. So let's look at the top cube. What is this front going to be? I see this back here, 7 inches. They're trying to trick you a little bit by putting it back there and not in the front here. But you can notice that from here to here is the same length as from here to here. So that would be 7 inches. So 7, what is your width going to be? It hasn't changed. Your width is still going from here to here. So you've got 7 for your length, your width that I just showed you down here, and your height is just from this line here going up. Okay, go ahead and multiply those for step two. Give you a little time to do that. Okay, now, what do you think step three is? We're going to take step one, the volume of the first cube, and we're going to take step two, the volume of the second cube, which is the top cube, and we're going to add them together. Okay, let's see what we get. So for the first one, let's check and see if we got our answer correct. Step one was 15 times 4 times 6. Your answer should be 360 cubic inches. For step two, you should have said 7 times 4 times 3 gave you 84 cubic inches. In step three, you had to add the two volumes together. So you had 360 plus 84. So your total answer should be 444 cubic inches. Nice job if you got that right. If you didn't, it's right here for you to write each step the way that I have it. I'll give you a couple minutes to really look at that and see where you went wrong if you did, or if you didn't, then good for you. You did a really good job. Okay, here's a cube with all the sides, all the same measurement. Take a look at this. Look at this cube right here. All the sides are the same, so 4 times 4 times 4 gave me 64. What they're showing you here now is if I want to double that cube or if I want to cut that cube in half. There's 3 ways that you could do it for each one. So follow along with me. If I wanted to double this cube, I could always look at the face of it and double that, and that would be 8, and then still multiply by your width and your height. So then you would have 8, because we doubled the 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, times 4 times 4, and that would give us 128 meters cubed. That's if I took this cube and made another one and added the two of them together, because 64 plus 64 is 128. And you know that double means 2 of them. So if I wanted to do it a different way, I could have said 8 times 16, because that would give me 128 as well. That would be using the floor space. And if I wanted to do more height and make my figure look different but still have the same volume, I could say the base was 1, meaning the length times the width. 1 times 1 would be 1. And then the height would go really high, 128 meters. So just a few different ways that you could take this cube, make the shape look different, but still have the same volume. And they did it again with half. If I wanted to cut this cube in half, okay, half of 64 is 32. So I would make 2 cubes, 32 and 32. And you could say 4, which is the base or the length, times 4, which is the width, and then cut the height in half. So we said 4 times 4 times 2, which gave us 32 meters cubed. So that meant I would have half a square and half a square, or half a cube and half a cube. Okay? Then most of the floor space. 8 times 4, and only 1, 8 times 4, you know, would be the base, or the length times the width. Remember, length times width gives you area, and that's called the base. And if they give you the base, you will notice that it's labeled with a 2 above it. So that means all you would have to do is multiply it by the height. So for this one, they're telling you 8 times 4, 8 times 4 is 32. So the height would only be 1 cube going up. That's it. And if you wanted to make the 2 half cubes to look like there's more height, then you would say 1 times 1 times 32 meters, and the height would be going up 32 cubes, way up, okay? But again, 3 different ways to make half a cube, but the volume remains the same. So what do you think your answer could be? Let's look at this. The combined volume of 2 identical cubes is 128 cubic centimeters. What is the length of each cube? These are just questions for you to think about because we did just do this one. What do we know right off the bat? Think about this. We do know that the height, the length, width, and height can be the same on each cube. When you add the totals, you should get 128 cubic centimeters. Okay, which takes me back to this. You could have said 4 times 4 times 4. And that would have been correct. Otherwise, you could have said they don't all have to be the same, but they can be. If they were different, you could have said that the base, the length times the width, was 8 times 16 to give you 128. Keeping in mind your volume stayed the same. Okay, let's look at our next one. A rectangular tank with a base of 24 centimeters squared is filled with water and oil to a depth of 9 centimeters. The oil and water separate into 2 layers when the oil rises to the top. If the thickness of the oil layer is 4, what is the volume of the water? Okay, so this picture, take a look at this picture. There's a couple of things we want to notice before we get started. First of all, it said the base area was 24 centimeters squared. That means we already know the length times width equaled 24 centimeters squared. So I have that marked here. The length in blue times the width is giving you 24 centimeters squared. It's filled with water and oil to a depth of 9 centimeters. When they say depth, they mean how deep it is. So that would be your height on the side. So that's why I have the height marked 9 with the arrow going up. So from the bottom to the top, that is 9. And they told us when the oil and the water separated that the oil went to the top. So this darker section here is the oil, and they said it was 4 centimeters. You see that little part right there that I've circled in red. So if the thickness of the oil layer is 4, we need to figure out first what was the water right here for the height. We know that the total was 9. The oil was 4. What would the water be? I'm going to give you a couple minutes to figure this out. If you have the height of 9, you have the height of the oil as being 4, what would the height of the water be? Because you definitely need to find that out first so that you can figure out the volume of the water. This is just giving us right here, this is giving us the height. So we could figure out the base times our height is going to give us our volume. Okay. So what you should have for this should be 9 minus 4 equals 5. So that will give us the height for the water. That's very important. If you notice, 4 plus 5 equals 9, and that's how we found this answer. 9, our total, minus 4 gave us our 5. Okay, so your base, length times width, should be 24 centimeters squared, and I have that for you. Remember, your length and width multiplied together gives you your area. So your area times your height will give you your answer to this question. Okay, go ahead and figure that out. Okay, I hope you got your answer. Now here's my hint at the bottom. Keep in mind that if they gave you an amount that is labeled centimeters squared, that means that they already figured out the length times the width. You would just need to finish by taking the length times width, the base, for that answer, and multiplying that by the h, the height, to get the volume. So let's see if you got the same answer that I got. I got 120 cubic centimeters for the water. I hope that's what you got. Okay, let's close up by going back to our target. I can find the total volume of solid figures composed of 2 non-overlapping rectangular prisms. That's just saying that we are finding the volume of 2 cubes and adding the volume of each of them together to get our answer. Okay, so remember to complete your homework and refer back to this video if you need help, and you know that you can always email me and I can get back to you. Miss you all, and have a great day, and we will talk again tomorrow.